Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy Friday Eve. All of that good stuff. Uh, it's me, your man, Dame DNYDC, host of the Two Mics Up podcast. Here tonight, closing out the month of October. And tonight's conversation is really a very deep one. One that, after really trying to educate myself, I'm hopeful that as a man, I can help open up other men's minds and eyes and ears to learn about something that affects, quite a few people in our community. And when I say our community, not just the black and brown community, but in our society as a whole. And you're probably asking, well, Dane, what are you talking about? Talking about October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. And tonight's guest, she really has a story to tell herself, um, that's really deep. And without, me, continuing on. Hey, sis, Melissa, how you doing this evening, sis? Thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you're doing well. I'm going to bring in tonight's guest, Sadija Smiley. Sadija, good evening to you, my sister, and thank you for joining us tonight here on the show. And I want to open up first by allowing you to introduce yourself to our audience and those who are listening and watching currently, and give us a little background about who you are, and we'll then jump into your actual story, if you don't mind.
Sure, sure. Thank you. And thanks again for allowing me to share and for honoring and helping to celebrate and raise awareness during the month of October, as you mentioned, also known as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. So I'm Sadija. I am originally from Philly, was born and raised. I moved here to the DMV area back in 2010.
Wow.
I am the proud mother of three beautiful babies, one who's in heaven, which we're going to talk about tonight. And I have two earthly babies, all girls. So pray for me, y'all. Pray for me. And I'm just, I love life. I love family. Purple is my favorite color. And I'm a vegetarian. Very proud of that. I've been going
Ooh.
strong for a little over a year now, almost 2 years. So.
Whoa. Yeah, okay, that like that's a sidebar like thing, because so real quick, so like vegetarian. So my wife is kind of going through a thing right now, um, and she's kind of, I guess they call it the FOD diet or something like that, and it's helpful because I'm diabetic, so a lot of things that she's been, it works for me, but like there's some days like you gotta look. I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk bad about vegans, but you gotta have that meat, like you gotta have that thing, and I haven't conquered that, but I'm gonna pray that now that I've met you, and you can help me while my wife continues to help me try to work on me. But like I said, that's a whole nother a whole nother topic that we can get into later. So, these you mentioned having three wonderful girls, and one who is a heavenly body and a heavenly spirit, that's here with us. Can you kind of just take a few minutes to talk about you know that part of your story and that history, and what led you to where maybe where you are today?
Sure, sure. So My angel baby, Aviana Celine, was stillborn on November the 13th in 2003. So October is a little hard, not only because of the theme, but
Mhm.
also it's the month before I delivered my daughter. And unfortunately, when I was 36 weeks pregnant, we learned that our daughter didn't have a heartbeat.
Wow.
And so essentially, what happened is she passed away in the womb.
Mm.
There were no complications. It was my first pregnancy. It was, book pregnancy. No challenges. I went to the doctor, did everything I was supposed to do, laid on my side, did all of these things. And one afternoon, I didn't feel her move. And, not knowing, being young, I was 23 years old, not knowing, people tell you that the bigger you get, the slower the baby moves. And so they don't have enough room. So I didn't know if it was normal.
Mhm.
But after a while, women's intuition, you have a gut instinct and you're like, something's just not right. So I called the doctor, went to the doctor. They told us to come in. When they, did the ultrasound and sonogram to look for her heartbeat, that's when they let me know that they couldn't find a heartbeat and
Mm.
that she had passed away.
Wow.
Um, Unfortunately, clearly it was a really tragic and devastating moment, and I didn't know. I knew what that meant, but I couldn't really conceptualize how you. Now that she's passed, what do I do? How do I get the baby out?
Mm.
I didn't know if I was going to have a C-section or what was going to happen. But they told me that they were going to induce me and that I would have to go through a labor process to
Wow.
still bring her through,
Wow.
even though she was not going to be crying, she was not going to be moving, and she definitely was not going to go home with me. And so I was in labor with her for about 23 hours
Oh, wow.
before I delivered her. I did get to see her. It's very scary because you don't know what the baby is going to look like. Um, Automatically, your mind goes to very morbid pictures, and you're like, oh, I don't know. So I didn't want to see her. I was very, very scared. But the nurse did show us her, and she was very beautiful, chocolate brown baby, head full of hair, eyebrows thicker than mine. And she just looked like she was sleeping. She was so precious. They dressed her. She was dressed in pink and
Wow.
white, the same outfit that we were going to take her home in. And she just looked perfect. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, at the end of that experience, we did go home empty-handed without a baby. So it
Wow.
was very, very difficult.
I can't even fathom what that experience is even like. And when I say the experience, one, as men, um, and I'm going to say this, and we play a very small role. Uh, Although important, it's a very small role in the development and growth of a child. And I'm thankful I was there to be able to see, our daughter, come into the world. But to be so young and to really experience that type of, I want to call it trauma, but it's a trauma,
Mhm.
you know. Uh, how were you then though able to kind of navigate? Because I think it's important that I think we talk about support. And I'm hoping and praying that you had support to go through that process. And what was that like? Can you talk about that support system that you had to get through that?
Absolutely. I think it's important that, like you mentioned, the father, it may not be a huge role, but he does play a role. My husband at the time, men and women grieve differently. And we have different roles when it comes to parenting and all of that. And so one is more nurturing and emotional. The other one is fix it. And he sees me
Mm.
broken down and trying to put me together and still, grieve himself. And the main support that we really had was we had to lean in on each other,
Mm-hmm.
and because no one really knew how we felt. That's
Mm.
one of the things that's missed when you're looking for support in any arena, but specifically when you lose a baby, you want somebody who can relate to you.
Yeah.
People often say, and we appreciate that they can't imagine, or they don't know what they would do. And while it's heartfelt, it's nothing like being able to hear someone else say, this happened to me too. and this is what I did to get through, or this is how bad it was for me, and
Mm.
really understanding that process. So it was us, dealing with each other's emotions and trying to be there for each other. I was 23, he was 25. We were still in
Wow.
college,
Mm.
away from home. So that was another layer. I
Wow.
couldn't have my mom be there for me or his mom be there for us. We were 8, 10 hours away from family. And so leaning into each other, going to support groups, it's important to identify a really good support group that you feel comfortable with, because
Mhm.
everybody's experience is different. Clearly, I'm a Black woman. And so being in a support group with women who don't look like me is totally different than being in a support group with women who do look like me,
Yeah.
because they understand that my doctor told me, go lay down, drink water. I wasn't taken seriously when I had these issues. We're just not the same. So when you can be around, your own people who understand and have been there, it's a totally different feeling. So finding a good support group, and unfortunately, I didn't do this, and I wish I had, but I would encourage others. Do your best to tell people what you need. It's
Mm.
really hard, for people around you to support you when they don't know how.
Right.
And so instead of asking, they typically shy away.
Mhm.
And then we get upset, like no one wants to help me, but they really don't know how. So just
Very good point.
do the best you can to make me a sandwich, do my laundry, try to verbalize what it is that you need from the
Right.
people around you.
That's really interesting too, because it just really leads me into another point. Because those things are all very helpful, but and you said something very important, like for probably each individual that has had to deal with this trauma or this experience, they find something helpful. What was it that, or what has it been? Because now we're still talking, because it doesn't end in that moment. This is still a journey. So, what has it been that's been like the most helpful to you on your journey after your loss?
The most helpful thing is people saying my daughter's name. Don't be
Mm,
afraid to ask me about her. I think
mm,
we feel isolated because people are scared to bring it up, and they're like, I don't want you to cry. It's okay if I cry. So bringing up my daughter's name, asking me about her, was her favorite food? What did I do with her? Where did I take her? So really being asked, and people showing true interest and genuine concern about the life that I lost, because that's my daughter. I
mm-hmm.
wonder, what would she look like? What would she do? How would she play with her sisters? So the most helpful thing is people. Aviana has honorary aunts. So there's aunties
Okay.
all over social media, and they're like, that's my niece. And I've never met them in person. Some of them I
That's
have,
what's up.
but it makes me feel good when they, ask about her. They reshare the moments and the memories. So I think including my child or the child of the person that has lost, just like you would any other child.
Mm,
It's not a plague. Don't shy away. So really being included,
mm-hmm.
and being honored as a mother, whether you have
Mm.
other children or not. Honored. I'm still parenting Aviana,
Yes.
even though she's not here.
Yes.
It doesn't end. So honoring my motherhood as it relates to my daughter has been really helpful. And then finally connecting with other women. I've met,
Mm.
this is the worst club to be a part of. It's the
uh,
suckiest club,
yeah, I understand. Yeah.
but I've met some of the best people in this club. And so
Mm.
I've met so many beautiful men and women that have experienced this, and we've connected through that journey and been able to support each other. So connect with others that have experienced it as well.
That's really, again, just listening to you talk. So yes, like Melissa said, communicate what you need. And before I really get into the next question, you mentioned something, because men are, like I said earlier, we're a small part of the process when we're, in the act of creation. But like you said, so what, if I can ask, maybe from a male's perspective, or your recollection and what your husband is dealt with and still dealing with today on his journey? Because I think men really need to understand that they do, we suffer too, and how has your husband been able to express or communicate and deal with this through his journey as well? If you could just take a minute maybe to share that as well.
Sure, sure. And I would preface that by saying, women, we have to give them that room to do that, because we don't.
Mm,
And I
okay.
had to do this for myself. I'm like, I'm crying. You're not crying. You must not care. But that's not true.
Mm,
And so I think women have to give men the space they need. And honestly, for the first I don't know, 2, 3 years, I didn't see him cry. He
Wow.
didn't, from my point of view, he didn't really grieve. And one day I said to him, I said, this is really hard for me. Like, I don't understand. I light a candle on her birthday. I'm writing letters to her and I don't see you doing this. And he said to me, you don't know what I do when I'm alone. I've
Mm,
gone down to the river. I've floated petals for her. I've talked to her, but I didn't see that. And so I didn't know that.
right.
And so I
Mm,
think as partners in this journey, we have to communicate and give each other the space to grieve the way that we each need to grieve. Because I
wow.
didn't think he was, I'm like, you're not, but he was. He just didn't share that with me. And so I would encourage men to tell your spouse, tell your
Mhm.
wife, tell your girlfriend how you're feeling, which I know is hard for men.
It
I
is.
know,
It is.
I know it's hard.
It's difficult, but that's why I asked because it is true. It's even similar. The book "Men Are from Mars" and
Women
women.
from
Because
Mhm.
we do things differently. We interpret uh, situations differently. We move and handle situations differently. And it's like you said. I mean, even to this day. My wife and I, we still like, but we've been together long enough. For this kind of look at each other like, or she'll look at me because it's not really each other. It's usually me. Like, really? And then I have to go in and say, but babe, well, this is why, because in my mind, like, this is just me. You should know that by now. But sometimes we need to be more expressive, and I'm glad that you were able to share that, because I think men need to understand we need to give more, especially in trying times like that. So
Absolutely.
I want to ask, with all of that's transpired and taken place, I want to know then, how did that lead to where you are now with Born into Silence and sales? Tell our audience what it's all about.
Yes, yes. So SAILS is the acronym for Stillborn and Infant Loss Support. And we are a nonprofit organization. And this is what I've created a purpose for my pain. You mentioned it being a trauma, and hopefully, God willing, one of these years, I have a book coming out, The Trauma That Transformed Me.
Okay.
And this really is the one that transformed me. And so I created an organization to help other families because I did not have that kind of support. I didn't mention this, but I was in West Virginia.
Oh wow. Oh
Exactly. So
wow.
if
Oh
you
wow.
know
Oh wow. Okay.
about
Enough
West
said.
Virginia,
Okay.
this is
Woo.
where we were
Okay. Enough
when
said
this
on that one.
happened.
Woo.
So definitely not support from people that look like me, or support in some instances at all.
Mm,
And so I realized people would contact me and say, can you tell us about your journey? What happened to you? My sister, my brother, so and so needs to talk to you. And I said, there's more people that need to know that they're not alone, that it's okay to say their baby's name, that they can honor their baby in any way they want to, or choose not to at all. They have a choice, but
mm-hmm.
we need to have a platform to do that. And that's how sales was birthed, to give folks that opportunity to honor their babies, their families, aunts, grandmoms. Because my mother, Aviana's grandmother, grieved also. She
Mm.
had a double grief. She was grieving
Wow.
for her granddaughter, and she was also grieving for me and what I was going through. So she's trying to comfort me, but she also
Mm,
lost her granddaughter.
mm,
And so creating a space where anybody impacted, whether it's the auntie, it's the church family, your people at work were waiting, they came to your baby shower. Everybody's expecting this baby to come home, and they're all impacted when he or she does not. And so sales was created to provide that support and be a resource to those families as they honor their baby and their journey, and just remembering the baby and the life that they lost.
mm. That's so. Who again? You don't think about the ripple effect that it really when you have a loss like that, how many people it does really affect, not just in your community, in your isolated community, but your extended community. And I'm sitting here, and this I don't want to say, but this might be my ignorance as a man, not really knowing. But I do want to ask because as I was reading to this is I don't want to say it's more common, but it happens more than we talk about
Mhm.
and that we're probably aware of. But are there any known causes as it relates to stillbirths? Like, are there any causes, any data or anything that maybe you've learned or you can share with us to educate us on that?
Absolutely. The first thing that I always share, and I hate to share, but it also relates to my story, is about 1/3 of the deaths of these babies are unexplained. There's
Mm,
no rhyme or reason at all. They've done autopsies, they've run all the tests, and they cannot understand why this baby did not survive.
mm,
Aviana was one of those babies. Did an autopsy. We still don't know. She was perfectly fine. There were no cord accidents. So about a third of the stillbirths are unexplained.
mm-hmm.
Other things that contribute are problems with the placenta. You may have heard like placenta abruption
Yeah.
or
Mm-hmm.
things like that. That contributes to it. There are sometimes cord accidents where
Mm-hmm.
the cord either has a knot in it and it cuts off the nutrition to the baby. Unfortunately, sometimes the cord gets wrapped around the baby's neck, and sometimes that can cause it. And just a little, it's not really a fun fact, but I was born with the cord wrapped around my neck. So I often, when I talk, I came into this world fighting and I
Mm-hmm.
continue to
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
So I always throw that out there. But preeclampsia, which is
Mm-hmm.
high blood pressure, in
Mm-hmm.
pregnancies, sometimes the mother may have her own health conditions that
Right.
can contribute to the loss as well. Unfortunately, sometimes lifestyle choices, smoking,
Yeah.
drinking, things like that can contribute to it. And then birth defects.
Mm.
Sometimes there are birth defects with the baby. Some families know before the baby passed away that there is a terminal illness that the baby has, and they may or may not come through this side of earth. And the family sometimes has to choose whether they want to carry the baby until the baby passes, or they have an elective termination. And so some families are unfortunately faced with that fact. But one quick thing that I didn't mention, so 1 in 4 pregnancies end in a loss, and there's several different types of losses, if you will.
Okay.
You have an ectopic pregnancy where
Mm-hmm.
the baby is in the tubes, and women, you can't carry a baby that way. You have a miscarriage, which is prior to 20 weeks. And then you have 21 and older is a stillbirth in gestation. So there's
Mm.
different stages, if you will, of
Right.
loss. They all impact families and women the same, but it's different stats along the way.
Mm-hmm.
So just I like to highlight that sometimes as well.
And you mentioned stats again. Gets my head or my mind to going. Um, when you look at stats, is it higher across or within one ethnicity versus the other, or is it equal across the board? No, I see you shaking your head. So,
Absolutely not. Black
mm,
women are 2 times
wow,
likely to
wow,
experience a stillbirth of their baby than our white counterparts.
wow.
And oftentimes we have multiple losses. So
Jeez.
grateful is not a good word, but
Mm-hmm.
I have to say I'm grateful that I've only experienced one. Some women experience multiple losses
Mm,
throughout their journey, but no, Black women are 2 times likely to experience a loss
wow.
as it compares to our white counterparts. And it's for many reasons. I mean, just if implicit bias in the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, when I reached out to my doctor and then looking where I was, so who
Yeah.
your
You.
doctor is, right,
Yeah. The
providing that
burger.
care for you really
Right.
matters.
It really
People
does.
say
Yeah.
it doesn't, but it really matters.
Mm.
Who's providing that care for you, whether or not we are taken serious. We
Yeah.
know our bodies, and when
Yeah.
something is wrong, and we also sometimes this is a doctor. I'm
Yeah.
trusting you. You went to school. You have
Right.
all these letters behind your name. I've never been pregnant before, and so you tell me. So I'm trusting you, and not necessarily trusting myself and getting a second opinion, and just having the education and awareness. I
True.
didn't know before this happened to me that this could even happen. People
Right.
say, "Oh, if you get past 12 weeks, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." Clearly, many of us are not
Not
fine.
fine. Yeah.
40% of the stillbirths occur post 35 weeks. Some
Mm.
women have a stillbirth at 41 weeks. How can you go an
Wow.
entire pregnancy and not know that something was wrong with this baby?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. This mind blowing. Hey, what's happening, sis? Ladies and gentlemen, my ride or die, my right hand, Lisa Middleton. Uh, hope you're doing well, sis. Get better soon. We praying for you. Love you. We miss you. Uh, And that right there is a perfect time. We're going to take a break. We're going to pause for the cause because we've got so much great conversation and so much education going on tonight. I want to continue this conversation talking about, maybe counseling and some other things when we come back on the other side of the break. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Word from our sponsors and two mics up. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, and we're back. Fresh out the break. Your man, Dame DNYDC, hosted the Two Mics Up podcast. We're sitting here tonight with Sadija A. Smiley, founder, CEO of Sales, and that's a big word. It's a big, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you reintroduce it because that's a mouthful for me, and I apologize.
Okay.
Uh, but Sadija has really been really opening up my eyes, and really educating us with a lot of knowledge and really a lot of education on what really goes on with stillborn births and things of that nature. And I wanted to follow up, Sadija, if I could. Um, I wanted to kind of touch maybe on counseling or support services because we talked about, early on about having a support system. But for those who may not necessarily have a support system, what kind of counseling or support services are there available for mothers in need?
Yeah, yeah, sure. And I would, we're gonna work together as mothers and fathers, so we're gonna
Okay.
work together. And so for families that have experienced a loss, I think, well, there's several online support groups. We're based here in Maryland, so the DMV area. There's some in-person groups here and some in-person therapists. Coma counseling is one that we refer a lot of our families to that have experienced perinatal loss or that are having challenges with maternal health and postpartum challenges. But I would encourage folks to go online and look for support groups for moms and dads. Reach out to your doctor and see if you can get a referral for a perinatal loss counselor. So there's a little bit of different nuances when it comes to grief and loss and counseling. And if you can find someone who specializes in perinatal loss, then that might be most helpful to you on your journey. You can go to PSI. That's a registry online for is it international registry, so you can look from anywhere. You can find support groups for moms, for dads. You can find therapists. I always encourage my sisters to look on therapy for Black girls. You can
Mm,
find a therapist that looks like you that can also support you through this journey as well. And then there's also another program, Grief Recovery. I'm a certified grief recovery specialist, and so we offer that in person, but they also have that in person and online as well. But I truly would encourage mom, dad, again, even the grandparents, they have sibling groups because sometimes there are children that were already there before this baby passed away that need help kind of navigating and understanding why my baby brother or my baby sister isn't coming home. So I would look for those groups as well. And I would encourage everyone that has experienced this to go through counseling. Even if you don't think you need it, you'd be surprised how much is uncovered as a result of the loss of your baby, because you lose more than just the baby. You lose
yeah.
all your hopes and dreams, graduations, first dances, first drive,
Mm,
college, friends, weddings, all of that stuff, all your dreams and hopes, you kind of lose all of that. So you lose a future
yeah.
versus having a past of memories to
Mm.
reflect on. So I definitely would encourage. You can also look on Psychology Today and search for a perinatal loss grief counselor.
Man, that whole thought. I'm having a thought while you're talking, and man, that was deep. I have to ask then specifically then, um, if someone, male, mom or dad, or man or woman, comes to sales directly, what type of activities, I should say activity, resources can they find specifically through you? Do you have here in the DMV? Are there certain sponsors or networks that you can refer people to? And I want to get local because we are here right now in the DMV, and if anyone is in the DMV listening, I want them to reach out to you, but I also want them to know what services are available.
Yes, absolutely. So they can reach out through us. I do provide the grief recovery coaching, and that's either one on one with me or in a group setting. We've had two groups so far, two cohorts finished. So we provide that. We're based in Laurel. We provide that in person. Again, we refer to Acoma Counseling, which is here in the DMV as well. They can receive support through them. We partner with other nonprofit organizations. We have partnered with a NIAS project, which is also here in the DMV. They provide support and resources as well. We've partnered with Elena's Gift. Elena's Gift is in Northern Virginia, and her program also provides support. We've partnered with Elijah's Purpose. So there's various, I should say this first, there's various levels of support, right? Might need financial assistance to pay
Mm,
for medical bills. People don't realize that you come
mm-hmm.
home without a baby, and about 2 or 3 months later, you get a bill from the hospital for that
Ooh,
delivery or that
ooh,
ambulance ride.
ooh,
Or that lab work that was done, and
ooh.
you're like, I'm supposed to be paying for, baby shower and gifts, and now I have to pay for a funeral, and I have to pay for this. So sometimes we need financial assistance. Elena's Gift provides financial assistance to cover medical expenses.
Mm,
Elijah's Purpose will cover funeral and burial needs. Sales, we also help with funeral and burial if they decide to cremate or have a memorial. We also cover those needs as well. And all of those are local resources. We also have a resource tab on our website. So if you visit our website at bornintosilence.org, you'll see all the resources broken down into categories. Counseling, books, information, financial resources, they're all listed there as well.
mm. Well, I'm gonna let that sit there, uh, for a second. Uh, and I just had another thing. I'm listening. So, has there been any additional research or any funding, that's to your knowledge, that has been set aside or, granted towards further research into, why we are dealing with, stillborn, stillbirths and things of that nature? Are you aware of anything like that maybe coming down the pipe or even being in the works?
There are a couple of different research projects. So some of the larger organizations and the national organizations like Star Legacy Foundation, they're heavy on the research, and
Hmm.
they have partnered with the University of Michigan. And I'm glad you asked about research, because part of the research is we have to get feedback from moms and dads and families.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes, like on our website and in our newsletter, we'll send out the information for surveys and research projects for us to participate in, but we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the research projects take participation from us, telling about our experience, telling how far we are, where along we lost our baby, and some of the things that happened. But Star Legacy is one, and there's a new organization, Push Pregnancy.
Okay.
They just started, I think, earlier this year, and they're heavy on the research as well, trying to prevent these stillbirths from happening. Those other 2/3 that are preventable, being able to prevent those.
Hmm. That's awesome. I hope this research continues and we can get more information and get in. You want to be able to solve and really stop things like this from happening. And I'm saying it really more so because it really resonates when I hear in the black and brown community. We're still taking these L's and these losses with all the modern technology that we're talking that exists, and we're supposed to have the finest of doctors and medicine, but our community is still subjugated to substandard uh, processes when it comes to giving birth, and that's just crazy to me. It's disturbing, to be
It's
honest.
insane. It's insane. And a friend and I were having a conversation earlier today, and she pointed something out to me that I didn't realize. She went over the amount of minutes
Hmm.
over the course of a 10-month pregnancy that you spend with your OBGYN during that 10 months. And it
Hmm.
was like 6 minutes a visit. And you
What?
have maybe like 7 or 8 visits. And and I was like, that's not enough
That's
time.
crazy.
That is insane. And I never even broke it down like that. When she broke it down, and she's the founder of Missing Peace Initiative. She provides support and hearts to families that have experienced a loss. But she was telling me that, and I was like, that
I mean,
is not even, it doesn't even add up to a week
and
over
that's
10
so
months.
insane. We're talking about bringing in a life, and over the course or the span of saying, you're talking about 6 to 7 minutes a pop. That's a TV show.
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
That's
It's one
crazy.
episode.
That's one episode. That's
One episode.
wow. That's just so mind blowing to me. Um whew. So Sadija, as we're coming towards the close of today's this live, which has been amazing, what what can people do to support, donate, or join sales, whether they're here in the DMV or from afar? Please let us know what we can do to support you in your mission.
So glad you asked, because we have actually, volunteering is so critical to our mission. All of the work that we do is performed by volunteers, packing our boxes, mailing the boxes off. The board is fully volunteer and not compensated. And so we actually have a board secretary role available.
Okay.
And we also are looking for a newsletter contributor. So we send out a monthly newsletter, and our newsletter contributor, her assignment ends the end of this year. And so that also helps with the research and education, highlighting a topic and researching and sharing that article in our newsletter. So we need a newsletter contributor. We need a board secretary. You can go on our website. Of course, bornintosilence.org. You can donate there. Monetary donations are always appreciated. That helps us to cover the cost of the funerals and the burials for our families, as well as mailing expenses to send out our boxes. There's also a volunteer link. You can click on that link and you can volunteer in any capacity. Again, we're looking for a board secretary right now and a newsletter contributor. We have annual events, and so we always are looking for an event planner and a project manager to help with that process as well.
So speaking of events, what type of events do you normally have in the community?
Yeah, so we have our main event is our annual Survivor Summit. And that's always held on the last Saturday of August. So we had one this year, our fourth annual will be next year on August the 27th.
Okay.
It's been virtual, of course, with COVID the last 2 years. We hope next year to be a hybrid event, but that event really serves two purposes. One is to educate the community. We bring grief experts and clinicians and medical professionals to talk about stillbirth, to talk about prevention, and also the grief experts are talking how to process through this, how to communicate your needs. But we also bring together families that have experienced it, because it's twofold. One is, of
Mhm.
course, we need education and research, but you also need to know you're not alone. Somebody went through this before you, and we are going to pull you through as you come through this other side. And so we try to have a balance. And because it is a sensitive topic, we try to have a DJ and some vendors, a little bit to light, because you can still have fun. I
Yeah.
smile, I cry a lot, but I also smile. And so we want folks to know, it's a sensitive topic, but joy and grief can coincide. And so we try to encourage folks. And so that's our annual event. Starting next year in 2022, we will be kicking off our education series. So it'll be a webinar or a Zoom event once a month
Nice.
where folks can have more education. You can join from anywhere in the world, log in and talk with us and chat with us. And again, hear from our grief experts and healthcare professionals and other lost families on how to deal with this and ride this wave. That's why we have sales.
Hey,
Sales is going to help you ride that wave,
I
because it is
love
a
it.
rocky, it's a rocky road.
I love it. I love. I think you exemplify, like you said, there can be, joy in the pain. You can laugh and still find sunshine through all of this. And your smile, your energy. I really thank you for everything that you're doing here in the DMV. You're doing for uh, mothers and fathers who have experienced loss. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Look, volunteer.
Yes.
Hey, I mean, DMV, where you at?
Yes.
Where y'all at? You know what I mean? Like, come on out, volunteer. Right, exactly. You see it, like, come on out, volunteer, help. For those of you who are not in the DMV, look, you'll be surprised, and I'm only saying because I know $5 goes a long way.
Absolutely.
$5, heck, $1.
Yes.
Goes a long way. If you can find it, and I know we're all in a pandemic and we're all struggling. If you can find it, please share it. And if you know someone that lives in the DMV that maybe did not watch tonight's show, tell them about it. Tell them about Sadija. Tell them about Born in the Silence. Give them, the website right there. Put it up for you one more time. Go ahead and support. I think this is, like I said, this season 3, I find myself talking about things that I think are a little under the radar, and I'm happy to be able to share it on this platform because we're all about educating, empowering, and impacting our community. And yes, she is.
Thanks,
When I say
Melissa.
she,
Shout out
right?
to Melissa.
And funny story. So Melissa, for those who don't know, uh, so I was talking about my sister earlier, Lisa. Who is my normal. She's the normal feature co-host, and prayers to her to get well soon. But Melissa is going to be joining me, and I met Sadija, or got Sadija's information through Melissa. So thank you, Melissa. Yes, she is doing amazing work.
Thanks, Melissa.
Melissa, who's a former guest, who's been on here for y'all who listening, go back, check her out. Be Unlimited. Go back into the file, season 1. Go listen to her episode. Great episode. She'll be joining me here on the ride as we continue through season 3. With all that being said, Sadija, before we go, please provide. I've been dropping, your website, but where can our guests? I mean, where can the rest of our listeners go to follow you online and your social media? Take a minute to go ahead and share that before we go.
Yes. And before I share that, I just want to say thank you, Damon, for being able to have this conversation, for sharing your platform on a very difficult topic that many people would not touch with a 10-foot pole. So I thank you for being, even though you haven't experienced it, people think you have to have experienced this to help champion the cause and spread the word, and you do not. You just have to be open to having the conversation, because that's where it all starts. So thank you for having me and having that conversation.
Thank you.
You can find us on social media at Born Into Silence on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can find me on all social media platforms at I am Sadija Smiley. Please follow, like, share. And even if you don't have the monetary support, a like and a share and a repost goes a very long way, because again, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in a loss. So if you think about the women in your family, if you think about the women on your pew in church, think about your colleagues. If you think about anybody on the road with you, on the train, every 4th person has the potential to have experienced this. So many people have experienced. So share, repost, and just educate everyone so that hopefully we can prevent these and provide support for those of us who have experienced it.
Oh, man, thank you. It's been my privilege, my honor, my pleasure to have you on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Sadija Smiley, bornintosilence.org. Like I said, just share the message, spread the word, do what you can, like you said, even through social media. One like, one share becomes 100, can become 1,000. And this is another way that you can help. With that also being said, you can also help us out here on Two Mics Up. You can go ahead and follow us online at www.twomicsup.com. You can follow us on our social media, IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Two Mics Up. And if you're here right now, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and give a thumbs up, thumbs down, leave us a comment. Let me know what you feel. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to hit that little bell right there in the corner so you can be notified about all the newest content coming to you from Two Mics Up. And yes, sis, we gonna go ahead and we gonna clap it up as we walk it on out of here. We gonna walk this dog on up out of here. May you all have a great Thursday evening, Friday Eve. May tomorrow be a great day for you, and may you have a better week ahead. And like we always do at this time on Two Mics Up, stay safe, stay blessed. Mics out.